Ladies and gentlemen, some of you follow the chess world pretty closely, and some of you do not. Regardless, I'm making this video at the end of 2025, and one man in particular has recently stolen all the headlines in the world of chess. His name is Javahir Sindarov. He is the number 2 from Uzbekistan, an extremely successful chess country. But he's the number 2. Usually, we hear about Nodirbek Abdusattorov, a perennial top 10 player, the former world rapid champion, the youngest ever on the men's side to do so. But recently, it's been all Javahir. He won the World Cup. He qualified to the candidates tournament. But in this video, I will be showing you 5 games that Nodirbek Abdusattorov just played in a tournament in London. And it is literally the embodiment of the lock-in meme. There's a meme on the internet of a person sitting in a chair and then leaning forward to take it more seriously. That is literally what Nodirbek did. Sindarov stole all the headlines, and for the next week, Abdusattorov has been on a rampage. I'm talking Voldemort returning, all right? Spoiler alert. Like, this man has been on a mission. And I will be showing you all the games in this video because it's crazy. Also, I'm drinking a protein shake because Nodirbek likes to go to the gym. So this full video is just, dedicated to Abdusattorov. We're going to jump into the games. These are all being played at the XTX, whatever it's called, London Chess Classic 2025. Here we go. Also, if you're watching this, there's 3 days left to get the first year of Chessly, 70 courses, all the learning tools, $49.99, little extended Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale for all of you. $49.99, 70 courses, not too shabby and growing. Okay, we pick things up. Late November, this game is played. Abhimanyu Mishra is the opponent. Nodirbek opens with pawn to e4, okay? At this level of chess, these players are generally all playing the same stuff. So we see e5 played, right? And now we have knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. Apologize if there was a Windows system noise. So after bishop b5, a6, this is the Spanish, bishop a4, knight f6, all main line, castle b5. And this variation, this is known as the Arkhangelsk variation. So Nodirbek attacks Abhimanyu by playing a4, rook b8, c3. The idea is just generally to prepare the move d4. Then he plays it, bishop b6, a5. This move is it looks on the surface like a pawn sacrifice, but you really can't take this pawn because you would be destabilizing your own center. So I would be able to take over here. So we go bishop to a7. Now, Nodirbek plays h3. This prevents anything from going to g4. Abhimanyu plays bishop b7. Rook e1 by Nodirbek. Castles. Bishop to e3. Pawn takes d4. C takes d4. Now there is a hanging pawn in the center of the board, but for various tactical reasons, you are unable to take it. Knight b4 played this. Notice their time, 90 minutes per player. Like, clearly both guys know what they're doing. And now this move, bishop g5 played by Nodirbek, pinning the knight. Now, I would like you to pay attention to the clock of Nodirbek Abdusattorov as I progress through this game. h6. He goes bishop h4. Now, the best move for black here is to play pawn to c5. That is exactly what Abhimanyu plays, and Nodirbek plays knight to c3. And now black has an option of what to do in the center of the board. He doesn't. He just puts his rook targeting the center. We have rook to e3. Wow. Rook e3. What a move. What on earth does that do? Well, if c4 now attacking the bishop, at least you can, prevent some various knight jumps. Maybe in the long run you have an idea to slide the knight over here. Really, it's very tough to understand. What is the point of rook e3? So Abhimanyu goes here, Nodirbek goes here. Abhimanyu takes his bishop, now spends a bit of time and plays this move pawn to b4, attacking the knight. The knight jumps into the middle of the board. The idea was actually that when you trade, if the rook takes, you will take it with the pawn, and you will improve your center and then open up the f-file for the rook. So the idea of rook e3 is that in the long run, you would like to put your other rook here, and it's protected. What? What on earth? And you know, Abimanyu thinks G5, and he plays it, and Nordjurbeck here sacrifices his knight. He sacrifices the knight, and clearly the other idea is shown here. It's to use the rook as an attacking, you know, piece on the king. So rook e3, rook g3 is played. This man is mad. Okay, he is mad. Pawn takes d5, rook takes e3. Now we have f takes e3, showing the idea to defend this and obviously have the open f file. Queen goes to e8. He has to lose his knight. Check. The king's... No, the king doesn't slide out of the way. He plays queen f2. And the point is that in the endgame, he is just much better because this bishop is so bad, it can't move at all. Rook b5, Abimanyu tries to play, but here comes Nordjurbeck's king into the center of the board. The black rook also doesn't have any moves. Total paralysis here for black. Rook b5, king e4, and h4, and rook f1, and every single move virtually made instantly. King slides back to e3, bishop to b8, h5 check. Look at this. Complete domination from Abdusattorov, folks. I told you to pay attention to his clock. He has 128 on the 34th move. The game started with 90 minutes on the clock, and every time they make a move, they gain 30 seconds. On the 35th move of the game, Nordjurbeck had spent 2 minutes total of his clock time with a dominant position, and not just a dominant position, he simply wins it. Rook c7, rook c6. He brings the king over here, pushes Abimanyu back here, and mate. He ends the game with more time than he started. 1:30 on the clock to start, 1:43 on the clock at the end. Now, obviously, he spent a bit of time, and he got an extra 30 minutes. But before he got his 30 minutes, I mean, he spent like 2 minutes getting a totally winning position. This was a mix of unbelievable opening preparation and just like brute force demolition. And there are 4 more games of this. This is an angry Nordjurbeck. I saw a stat report like the other day that said Uzbekistan has the highest average rate of testosterone in the world per man. I haven't measured, but I mean, bro, if if this game is any indication, so for this next game, this is just, you know, like I said, just 200 moves of just like Uzbek fury is what this was. So his very next game, Abdusattorov is playing with the black pieces now against Nikita Vitiugov, solid grandmaster, d4. It's not easy to win with black. It's really not. Like, players with white are uber solid. Here, white choosing a very traditional setup against black's Queen's Indian defense. Knight c3, knight e4. The bishop goes to d2. f5 played. We have knight to e5. And now, you know, Nordjurbeck plays d6 to kick the knight out. He trades, and it's quite clear that, you know, white is just trying to trade some pieces and get a very straightforward position. So Nordjurbeck is going to have to generate some sort of initiative here. He ultimately opts for a queenless position. Winning this with black would be extremely impressive. Like, really, there is no way to sugarcoat it, and Vitiugov is up 23 minutes on the clock. In the previous game, you know, it was Nordjurbeck who deliberately played extremely fast. Now he can't because he doesn't have the preparation and he doesn't know how to play this position for a win so easily. Okay, we generate imbalance, right? Like, this is what we're going to do. This is our structure, kind of weird, you know, B file, kind of open. Maybe in the long run, we get these pawns down the board. Like, we are, you know, trying to create a pass pawn. Maybe that will come in handy in the future. I don't know. Maybe we're gonna do that. Rook here. Now the king has to play defense. Rook e4, we develop the knight. Rook e8, what a move. The idea is that after rook takes e6, there would be knight into d4 with various tactics. Like, the rook would be under attack, you would be threatening f3, you would be threatening this to fork the rooks if they appeared on certain squares. Bishop f6, and Nordjurbeck just begins the process. Like, he walks the king across the center of the board. Then he goes to d7. Now the king is actually in a better position because it's protecting both center pawns. Now a3 destabilizes the queen side. Beautiful play, by the way, against a very, very strong and experienced grandmaster who has to take. Now he undoubles his pawns. Let this serve as a lesson. Better pawn structure, right? If you take, then I'm actually not even going to win the pawn back if you take. I'm going to go infiltrate on the b file. You don't really have a choice, though. You got to let me get something. In comes knight d4. Look at this initiative. Now f5, knight d4, e5. We have f4, g4, rook h8 immediately targeting the pawn of the weakness that we've created, and now rook e7, trying to double the rooks on the h file. Knight c3, we double. White just has to lose a pawn. Nodrbek has broken through. 10 straight moves in a row. All right, full throttle. Now the rook is going to the other side of the board to infiltrate potentially down the center line. But at any moment, we are going to break through rook b8, king a5. We sacrificed our pawn, and now we sack the knight. Look at this. The a pawn going through. The king is going to come help. White's knight is looking kind of nice, but it cannot help whatsoever. Rook d3 it's still the sacrifice. The king is coming to help, and even though white has a horse, and Nodrbek does not, he is completely winning because the pawn will make it through rook b2, a2, just amazing stuff. Another sacrifice here to get this pawn through, just absolutely vicious play. Nodrbek would know a thing or two about horses. In this game, he had to give it up. There was no horse for him. He beats Vitiugov, an extremely, impressive game. Not every game could just be a thunderous, decimation like the previous one. Oh, but you best believe that whenever Nodrbek had a chance, he won basically as fast as possible. This was a masterclass of a game. Games like this must feel extremely satisfying to win. You got no business playing this for a win, but you utilize the imbalances, and you do a very nice job. Now, in the next game, he had black once again. He played against e4. He played the Sicilian defense, looking to play for a win. His opponent, another very experienced English grandmaster in Michael Adams, playing a Rossolimo, e6. This is one of the most combative systems, c3, and now d5. So we might turn this into an advanced French, kind of. But white plays d3. Now we have bishop d7, so that when you take, you don't have to take with the pawn. Bishop f4, and Nodrbek plays knight e7. Very compact setup for black, so it's going to be a long maneuvering battle. So he goes knight g6. We have takes, takes. You give a check. The bishop comes here. It's clear that there is some pressure being put on the position, but there's really not too much. Bishop d6. Bishop d7 is apparently, I don't know, this is just some ridiculous thing in the game review. So now Nodrbek has this position. Just like in the previous game, it's a position like, how is black going to win this? Really, how is he going to pull this off? To me, brilliance is not just, thunderous destruction every single time. It's also, sophisticated maneuvering, which at this level is really the way you have to beat people. So we go rook ae8. Knight c2. In this game, unlike the previous one, in the previous game, we had, a degree of imbalance. We had imbalanced pawn structure, imbalanced piece placement. Yeah, here we kind of had none of that. We just have, we have knight for bishop. That's the big imbalance, but otherwise the pawn structure is the same. Black has a little bit more space in the center. The queen attacks the pawn, b3, and it's clear Nodrbek is coming in on all sides. So we have rook e3. He could have traded the rooks, but he backs the queen up. g3. White is kind of poking at him with the pawns. Knight to h4, knight back to f6. Very, strong tension being built in the center of the board. Rook e1, bishop f8. He rejects trading the knight for the bishop, and he takes with the pawn. He could have traded another pair of rooks, but instead he opts to take with the pawn. The knight goes back. The second he had a chance, in this position, the best move for white was to actually play knight h6 check. And the idea was that after a pawn takes, you take the knight, and black's king is a little bit open. I think Nodrbek was welcoming that, because then you would go bishop g7 and try to take this pawn. Michael Adams made one inaccuracy. Nodrbek swarmed him immediately. Queen a6 on the board, attacking the pawn and targeting this one. This one is a real attack. So the best move now for white is pawn to a3. You could also play rook a1, but that's a little bit... He goes a4. He tried to take a little bit of space and prevent this, but you needed to fight for b4. You needed not to fight like this, because suddenly Nodrbek attacks the other pawn and you don't have an easy way to defend it. You might look at this position and go, what are you talking about? Of course I have an easy way to defend it. I just go pawn to d4, now my queen defends the pawn. Now that allows the knight to jump in. Nodrbek is so relentless in this tournament at punishing his opponent's inaccuracies. Queen a6 and knight to e4. c4 on the board. Now we take on d4 because that's been destabilized. You can't even take it because your rook would hang. We have pawn takes d5, knight g5, immediately jumping out of the middle, and d3 appears. He sacrifices his rook, because then he would take on c2, and he would go for the rook, or he would help the pawn promote. His knight hangs, his rook hangs, but he plays pawn to d3. Michael Adams goes here, we take, Rook c1, in comes the bishop, and you cannot take the pawn because I would give you a check, force your king up, and then I would check your rook would also be hanging. Bishop a3 is game over. Michael Adams goes queen h5, rook f8, and just resigns. 31 moves, a rampage, 3 in a row, and I have 2 more to show you. And as I'm recording this video, he's playing another game. But I wanted to record this video. I mean, I didn't want to wait to see, if that game was going to be a draw, but if he wins, whatever, I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you all the same. I got another one for you. This is against Theodorou. Very, very good player, very experienced player, just played in the World Cup. 2650 FIDE, also young. Guys like Michael Adams are a little bit older, but that doesn't, he's a legend. But Theodorou's, 27 or something. So can Nojibek do this against somebody his own age? Beat up on somebody your own size type of thing. Bishop b4. He plays a weird whatever on earth this is. This is actually a reverse Sicilian in many ways. Nojibek plays the exact same thing he did in this game, by the way. Look, c-pawn, knight, and then e-pawn, except in this game, it's c-pawn, knight, e-pawn, but he's playing with white. So he's playing the same opening with both colors. That's actually quite fascinating. Castles, and now he can play a3 or d4. He goes queen b3, which is definitely a rare move. A5 played after some time. Now you attack the bishop. The bishop can take or go back. He opts to take, and then he plays d6. This is a slightly inaccurate setup, which allows white to get a very pleasant position. The computer really wanted to play c6, followed by d5 or b6 at least, and put the bishop on this diagonal. After d6, Nojibek, just gets a very pleasant position. And Theodorou tries to justify his play by playing this move pawn to e4. But, the thing is, after you trade some pawns in this position, it's going to be the guy with the bishops that just has a very comfortable edge. He can go b3, he can go bishop b2. And his bishops are going to be thriving on this diagonal. They're going to be doing very, very well. Knight e5, he tries to get the bishop. He says no thank you, puts the knight in front of his king. And now this is about white's biggest advantage of the opening, point 9. Clearly things have gone very, very well for Nojibek. Again, good preparation, good playing. Can he capitalize? He's been really, really sharp. b3, f3, and e4, just total positional domination here. f4, wow. So before he even puts the bishop on the diagonal, he says, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going for f5. I'm going to try to blow you completely off the board. Bishop d7, f5. Knight goes into the middle of the board. Bishop g5, b5. Interesting counterplay here. You asked me what to do here. I'm going to take and probably put my knight on d5. But Nojibek plays slightly wrong and allows some counterplay. And actually, Theodorou is back in the game here for a little moment. So, not every game you win is going to be completely flawless. Rook d6, he grabs a pawn, but Theodorou is fighting. He's a very, very, very clever player. He takes the knight, and now this guy might make it through a little bit, This is definitely like the least pleasant position he has had during this video, but he's still up a pawn. Ultimately, black is still a pawn down. Oh my goodness. Not only is black a pawn down, he decides to sack his queen entirely. This is a crazy move. He wasn't handling the tension. He could have kept maneuvering. He could have kept looking for the outpost in the middle of the board. He sacks his queen. And I guess he just thinks he can't lose this position. The craziest thing about this is Nojibek now just, very intelligently maneuvers around the board and gets a totally winning position. Because the 2 knights and a rook just isn't a combination that is going to scare a queen. They're very clumsy. Knight e5, queen f4. I think around here, Nojibek had his biggest advantage. He just had to go running with the a-pawn. But it wasn't that easy. Actually, Theodorou got back into the game. Had he gone for, some king h7 move and then taken the pawn on e4, he needed to hide his king away from any potential checks, but he had no time. He ended up taking this pawn, and this is the wrong move because it allows Nojibek to once again play a little bit of ping pong with the pieces, and the pawn just runs. And this game was a little bit stressful. It was more exciting than I would say it was flawless, but he still wins a 4th game in a row. His opponent sacked the queen. It was a super enterprising battle. But once you build a winning streak, luck bounces in your favor, and also you build a little bit of confidence. You never feel like you're screwing up truly. That's 4 wins in a row. And this next one was just kind of awesome. So this next game, Nojibek, again, with the black pieces, he, like I said, he's won several. This was a 200 move span, where he just totally popped off. I know you cannot actually get 200 brilliant moves in a row. You got to play openings and make some inaccuracies, and obviously some moves are just good and whatever. It's more like, you know, the brilliance of the moment. Your countryman has the spotlight, he's going to the candidates, and then you just like, y'all must have forgot. Hello, I'm gonna gain a bunch of rating now and make it into the top 5 again. So at this point, Nodibek kind of slows down. He plays e5. He's like, you know what? I'm probably gonna win the tournament. I don't have to play for a win every single game. Let's play symmetrical. But his opponent plays the Scotch. Sam Shankland plays the Scotch. If you want to make a draw, this is not really the opening that you're going to play. So we have bishop c5, knight b3. This is a move. Bishop b4, c3, bishop e7. This invites white to play dynamic chess. e4, f4 on the board. Black has nothing in the center. So you develop a pawn. The idea is to prevent white from playing e5. White develops a bishop. You develop the knight. That may look disrespectful. You could put the knight on f6. But it's actually better to put the knight on h6 in this type of structure because you would like to play pawn to f5. So the knight on h6 normally would be taken by that bishop. This is why you don't want to put knights in the middle, you know, on the side of the board, because they will get taken. Your structure will get damaged. Your king will be open. And also, you really only move knights to the edge if they have an immediate jump back or you support a pawn advance. Just because he did it doesn't mean you should do it. This does not mean you should play knight h6 in your next game. But as we see here, he gets this move, pawn to f5. So this is the position. Still in a scotch, things are generally hovering around equality, but the position is definitely more fresh than, let's say, in some, you know, boring Spanish that could arise. So knight f3, Nodibek slides his king. You will notice he played this move because the king would have the open diagonal. Now there is no diagonal for the queen or the bishop to check him. Bishop f5, bishop takes, knight takes, and this is the position. Okay. How is black? Wow, Sam Shankland. You know, playing like this, playing with fire against somebody that has won literally every game that he has played before playing you, bold, you know, really, really bold. And Nodibek invites, you know, the attack. You know, he plays knight h6. White should now play h3, controlling the knight. Okay, knight d4 is also a very reasonable move. Queen d7, and now we have f5. Look at this. Just threatening to chop the knight completely, open up the black king. This allows knight e5, though, and that's what he does. And Nodibek says, yo, take my knight. You want to take my knight? Damage my pawns? Isolated h-pawns, weak king, no g-pawn, no f-pawn, no e-pawn. Go for it. Go for it. You want it? Come get it. GF, let's go. No problem. I'm more than happy with all of that. I was like, all right. h3, no. I'm not gonna take your knight. I'm just gonna control your knights. Knight hf7. Knight e6 is possible, but I'm looking at g6 ideas. I'm looking at rook g8, rook f8 ideas, and then maybe breaking open the king side. Once this falls, white is mated. I mean, it's just made in a few moves if the king side falls. So Shankland has to be very, very careful here with how he's gonna do stuff. Bishop to f4. Now g6. I said this was coming. He could put his knight on e6. But, you know, if he puts his knight on e6, I might not even have to move the knight. Like, there are some positions where I might even be able to sacrifice. But the thing is, you're just going to help me if you do that, right? So, okay. So Sam has to think about what he's going to do here. He ends up going king h2. Nodibek plays bishop f6. Now the knight will be taken with a check. The rook is going to g8. The rook is going to e8. Everything is on the right square. And then you're going to chop the pawn and open up the king. What's funny is that the computer still thinks that white has a small advantage. I think as a human, you really feel like this is spinning out of control a little bit. Knight to e6, rook g8. What does white do now? What is white's next move? He goes queen e2, which is very reasonable. Nodibek takes. Rook e8. It feels like everything is building up for a breakthrough for black to win this game. This one pawn is holding everything together, and I cannot stress that enough. Rook d1. And apparently that is an inaccurate move. Like, apparently here with white, you have to go knight back to d2. He goes rook d1, queen e7, slow move played by Nodibek, building it up once again. Knight goes to d4, knight g5. Now's the big moment. Black is looking to, you know, relieve the defenses. Maybe there's ideas in the long run, not right away, but in the long run of doing something on that file. Sam goes bishop takes g5, and knight b5. Attacking the pawn on c7. Actually, this is a fork, frankly. You cannot move this because this. What does Nodibek do? He goes bishop h4. There are threats of bishop g3. queen h4, rook g3, and rook g8. The position is still okay for white-ish, but this is a fatal mistake. This is a fatal mistake. This allows a nice little combo. Bishop check, and this move pawn to c5. Played instantly, by the way. Instantly. I think what was missed, maybe, is that this pawn looks like it's hanging, right? But queen h4 is completely vicious. I'm not exactly sure what was missed. Maybe, I mean, it wasn't this. Maybe he thought he had something here along the lines of like an f6, or after rook e4, he just thought d5 wasn't possible. Because after d5, there is, you know, rook e5, which if takes, there's this, but queen h4 actually just wins because you can't protect h3. You can't protect h3 and your rook. I think maybe that's what was missed. It wasn't the pawn on d6. It was probably rook d4, and after this, he was like, oh, I can go rook e4, but then there's d5. I'm not sure. But that's totally, you know, that's totally lights out. And he goes rook a4, d4 shuts the rook down, so the rook is never going to get across, and now queen h4 is just a threat. He plays queen e4, queen d7 targets the knight, you defend it, and I just sack the rook. I sack the rook because at the end, you can't protect h3. Anything you do will lead to a discovered attack by my rook. I'm going to move the bishop, and that's going to be the end of the game. You go rook f5, queen h6 is a threat on h3, and on c1, he goes back, bishop f4 attacks the queen, queen c6 back. Look at this vicious hunting on the diagonals. Queen to c6 check. Any way you block its mate, the king has no legal moves. And in this game, he played in a way, Norderbeck, where he waved the opponent on. He said, come get some. e4, f4, put his knight on the edge of the board, and then he brought his knight back. He said, come get some. Look at this, and look how the game ends. The game ends with a total reverse counterattack on this side of the board. The knight, the bishop, everybody. This rook is just like smoking something over here. I don't even know what's going on. Just like hanging out on the edge of the board. Just total domination here from Abdusattorov. In this game he's playing right now, he has a +1 advantage. Like as I'm recording this video, he is playing Luke McShane, another English Grandmaster. This one was a anti-Berlin, and it's dynamic enough that I'm pretty sure in these ensuing complications, yeah, Norderbeck ended up grabbing, you know, the light squared bishop. He can continue with bishop f1 and b4. There is more work to do, but he is definitely convincingly better, and he has found a way to win every game. He straight up might win 6 games in a row in this tournament. He's up from like 18th in the world back to like number 11, 2750. And yeah, my man leaned in. My man really leaned in. So, very impressive run by him. And I will continue to cover, obviously, his career as well, although he is not going to play in the next candidates tournament. Having said that, I hope you made it this far in the video. Hope you enjoyed. Obviously, setup behind is a little bit different once again, moving some stuff around. Yeah, if you're watching this December 2025, you got a few more days to lock in the sale rate on Chesley. And then it's gone. And then it's gone. And it's my birthday in 3 days. I'm turning 30. Dinosaur. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.